Welcome, everyone. This is Ascension. We are going to be talking with Jackson today. Adam and Jen are joining us as well. Just before we get into this one, just a quick little disclaimer. This is obviously a pretty serious subject matter. You're going to have to do your research. Don't just fly by the seat of your pants. We're just here to give our experiences and, maybe some recommendations or some guidance on it. But again, you're going to have to do your own research and make sure you're not, sourcing any of this from people on Instagram with the handle of Homeboy97. That's probably not a good idea, especially underneath all of these videos. You're going to see a bunch of those scammers. Just stay away from those. They're not reputable. Do your research. So now that long-winded intro is out of the way, welcome, Jackson. We haven't seen you in a while. And how you doing this morning?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Feeling good. Ready to rock.
Nice. So for those that don't know, Jackson has been a member of Trick Trades for a very long time. He's like, man, I don't even know how many years, a lot of years. And he was actually working for Trick Trades for about, I would say, a good solid year and a half, maybe even a little bit longer. I'm horrible with timelines.
For a while.
Yeah. And that's true. Actually, Jackson runs our Trick Trades archives where we take screenshots of all of our levels every single day. So you can always see how these levels work out. And then I hired him on with Trick Trades. And he was with us for a while. That didn't end up working out. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because I'm sure there's some members that are watching this that might have some questions. Because it's nothing but love for Jackson. I love the guy. He's a good guy and had nothing to do with, him personally or anything. And we're going to get into that sort of stuff. But today's episode, I always say tonight, and it's like first thing in the morning. It's like super early in the morning. We're going to talk about Jackson's wanting to actually go on a journey, take a trip. And we're going to find out why and everything else. But before we get too far into that, because we know you, some people that are watching this might not know you. Where did you grow up? Kind of a little bit of background. What's your story, buddy?
Yeah, so born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm 28 right now. I'm in Cleveland right now. And yeah, I've been trading since 2017. Gosh, so it's been about 7 years now. It's taken me all sorts of places, and yeah, met you in 2018. So it's been about 6 years now. So luckily, I found you relatively early. Yeah, it's just with trading, it's made me want to improve my life like nothing else ever has. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize when they get into trading. They think it's just the act of trading. It's something we've talked about a million times on various shows that we do. But it's more of a personal growth and personal journey. And once you start going, in order to get over certain hurdles, that's what you need to do, right? You got to start working on yourself. And that's why we're, doing this Ascension podcast, because, psychedelics, specifically mushrooms, are something that we all use in order to help us get over these hurdles. And I love doing these podcasts because it really opens up doors and kind of kicks down stigmas that are attached to this sort of stuff. Because when you first hear about it, especially maybe it depends on how you were raised or anything else, you immediately think it's the big D word, right? It's drugs or something. And it's like, it couldn't be further from that. So what's your experience with mushrooms? How did you come across them? Where did you kind of start with that?
Yeah, so those two different paths have actually been pretty aligned, and I didn't actually realize that till about right now. So the first time I ever did them, they were with a trusted friend. I was in college, but it wasn't exactly for that reason. It's not something I ever thought of before. And a friend brought it up. He's like, hey, this is something you want to try. I think that you would really like it, because we've had deep conversations and stuff like that before. And so we were just sitting on a fire escape in Cleveland, and we just got to talking. And I think the first profound thought I really had was, like we're all just people. I used to put everyone else on a pedestal and like, oh, like I could never be that. And just a lot of confidence issues. And that's when we got to think, it's like, no, like we're all just people. Like we're all on level playing ground. We all have the same amount of time. And then that's when I got to thinking, it's like, well, if I could do anything, like what would I want to do? And I hadn't started trading at the point, but it was on my radar. I heard from you know who, so he piqued my interest. And yeah, it's pretty much been like that was the beginning, and this is where I'm at now.
You know what's really interesting? Something you just said. We're all just people. And for those of you that have read anything from Jeremy Narby is an author and an anthropologist, and he spent a lot of time in the Amazon doing massive amounts of ayahuasca. And it was part of a research paper that he did for university. And the very first time he took ayahuasca, that was his first profound thought. We are just human beings. And I found it pretty interesting that you had the exact same thought. And I think it's a thought that a lot of people have when they first do these. Like it immediately grounds you, right? Like we put ourselves up on a pedestal that we're humans, and we think we're bigger than what we are, and we're not. We're a part of a system, right? We're a part of nature. We're an animal, and I think a lot of people have lost that connection of that animal side, and not in a violent way. Like when people refer to someone as an animal, they usually mean they're a lunatic, right? But that's exactly what we are. I just found it really interesting that that's something that he said. And there's a chapter in The Cosmic Serpent when he's kind of discussing that. And he repeats it a lot during that book. So it was obviously something that he found like super important, right? And it was the exact same thought. So for those of you that haven't read The Cosmic Serpent, read it. It's a great read. It's super interesting, and it's one of the books that I highly recommend. I know Adam's started that book, and it's how are you finding that so far? I know we're kind
I
of
love it.
trailing.
I mean, it's this whole journey of success, of life balance. It's all about expanding our awareness, right? Learning about trading is expanding your awareness. You know what I mean? It's nothing more complicated than that. It's going into places that you don't have experience in, and the Cosmic Serpent is just an incredible study in this author's journey of expanding his own awareness, going against the biases in his field of expertise. And we all have our own fields of expertise. And it's our job to go against those biases because those are where our limits are. And that's where the opportunity of growth begins. So it's a great book that just goes so deep into areas that are too deep to go in here, but it is definitely worth a read.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like I know I've already said this, but it is like when it comes to day trading, it's when you first get into it, your first year is just looking at it as candles or charts on a screen. It's like a level one perspective. That's kind of how I put it. And the longer you go, if you kind of make it past those first initial hurdles, you start realizing it's like, oh shit, I'm not getting anywhere because there's more to this, right? And that's where these tools come in. These are tools, and they're great tools. If used properly, they can really get you over these hurdles that are almost or can feel impossible to conquer and get over. And these things, just like Jackson said, the first profound thought that he had, and for some of you, it might not seem profound or anything, but it is, because it levels you. It makes you realize that there's, we're very clouded in our heads, right? Like, not to go too deep down the rabbit hole just on the first thing that Jackson said, but these types of thoughts, they immediately put things into perspective. And that's the beauty of these tools, man. Like they can give you so much And when you repeat them, that's why it's funny when you're doing stuff like this and you're asking these questions and people have these profound thoughts. When you put it out to a person that hasn't experienced it, they just look at it like, oh, okay, so we're just humans. Or you know what I mean? Or we're just people. But it's deeper than that. And that's one of the nice things about, I find, with any psychedelic, is you can get lost in your thoughts, and these thoughts start kind of tumbling, but in a good way, and they lead you to different places. And it's one of my favorite things about using these as tools, because you never know where they're going to take you in your own mind in a good way. Yeah, I just found that super interesting that you said that, though, because that's so fucking weird, man. But
it seems like you guys were talking about ego death in a previous episode. It
yeah,
almost seems like that's step one of ego death, because like you've talked about in like mentoring classes and whatnot, low confidence is also ego. Like, oh, like no one could possibly be as bad as I am. Like,
That is true.
it's
Wow,
like
that's
a
great.
twisted sort of way.
yeah.
Once you
I've
start,
never looked at it like that.
Yeah. Jackson,
Yeah,
you're on a roll.
yeah. That's like
he brings us
that's
out.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Yeah,
kind of had
Low
to deal with that.
confidence is
Yeah,
ego. Yeah.
that's something, because whenever I first came into the room, you would talk about ego, and I'm like, well, I honestly told myself, I'm a girl. I don't have ego problems. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
There you go.
Which is my ego.
Yeah.
But, I realized that as I went along, I had poor self-confidence. I didn't believe in myself. I'm like, oh, I would tell myself, I'm never going to get this. I'm just going to quit. Every time I would take even a little red trade, I would, just be ridiculous about it. And I realized, I'm like, no, dude, that's your ego. That is your ego doing that to you, and I've actually studied a lot about ego after that. And the reason why, it's like you make progress and you come back, it's because your ego is trying to keep you safe. So that's why,
Yeah.
if you believe about yourself that I'm this little tiny person and I can never do anything, I'm a girl, then your ego does what it does to keep you safe and make you, keep those same beliefs. So I'm like, no, I do have ego problems. That's why I'm not moving forward. So just to, echo on what
People they look at ego like it's like, when you hear ego, you kind of immediately go to the word like macho or like something along those lines. And it's got
Exactly.
nothing to do with that. It's your identity. It's like you said, it's what it keeps you safe. And it's really easily missed, because that word gets thrown around a lot. That has nothing to actually do with, well, it does have to do with ego, but it doesn't really necessarily have to do with like the root of what ego is. So it's kind of like it's kind of a confusing subject for people that haven't experienced it or haven't thought about it. They think about it in a certain way, and it couldn't be further opposite from that. It's everything that we do. It's any decision that we make that has emotion to it, or you have some sort of a feeling to it. It's generally rooted in ego, right? And that's when you get defensive. It's when you're not looking at things correctly. It's the brainwashing that we've all been subjected to throughout the years since we were kids, even on a minor level, right? Like, our parents telling us as little kids, oh, don't do that. You're gonna hurt yourself. That stuff sticks with you, even on that minor level. And that's the stuff that you have to try and work through. And again, these are the tools that help you work through that stuff, because it all piles up, and that's what keeps a lot of people held back. It's just these little things, and it's like we don't think about it. Like, don't climb up that ladder. If you do, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. Or like, don't run, it's slippery. It's all of these things. They pile up, they limit us. And it's like, that's your parents trying to keep you safe, right? And it all just compounds. And it's not like it's a bad thing, but it's things that as we get older and we mature, or we're trying to conquer something that is super difficult, like trading, and it's like 99% mental, right? Like, those are the things that will hold you back, because your mother telling you when you were 3 years old, running down the driveway, to not do that because you're going to fall. that translates on the screens. When you're looking at those screens and that stock market is selling off, but it's coming into a support level, you immediately go back to that subconsciously, that it's your mother telling you, don't do that. It's going to hurt you, because you're seeing speed, you're seeing distance. The stock market is designed a certain way. Why do you think those candles are red? Right? Like red, bad, right? So it immediately wants to help you, or it makes you have your guard up over that, right? And it's all of these little things that we have to overcome, and you have to almost like reprogram yourself, right? So it has a lot to do with that. And again, that's why these tools are great, because it really helps you break down those barriers. So
just building that awareness. I mean, it's interesting hearing you talk about your perspective, especially as a woman, of what kind of thoughts you have when you take a red trade, because it's easy. And Pat and I were talking yesterday just about having that trust and that faith. Well, it's easy to have faith and that trust when things are going well. Well, what happens when things don't go well? Those thoughts that we have about ourselves get brought up. And it's kind of like what Adam has talked about before. These different tools, they help us kind of identify our patterns and then start rewiring them, recoding them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't want to admit that, especially nowadays, that men and women are different. We are different, right? So me coaching a woman, obviously I'm going to miss certain things because I'm not a woman. I don't think like a woman, right? So there's things that, that will be different, right? And that could definitely be a whole episode on itself, interviewing Jen just with like little things like that, because there is differences and people don't want to admit that there's differences, but there's differences and you have to take a different approach. But I don't take a different approach because that's my ego, right? Thinking everyone thinks like me. And it's like, that's again, some of the work that I'm trying to personally do is just like really see things from other people's perspective. And I've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go with that, right? Because I've always been like that. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong, period, right? And I still do that. I know I still do that. I do that all the time on screen share, right? Or I'll read something in chat, right, that I misread. It's completely my fault because I just glance over quickly and then I'm halfway down the guy's throat and then I got to pull myself back, right? It's nobody's perfect, right? Like everybody has flaws. And that's one of the ways that I use these is to try and help with that, right? Like, so what are some of the things that you're trying to accomplish with this, Jackson?
Yeah. Actually, something came up from what you were just saying. It's just having each of us kind of go through that thing. I mean, the power of our thoughts, I mean, it dictates our entire life. And to be able to identify those habit loops, those thought loops, because we have 70,000 thoughts a day or whatever it is. And they'll typically end up being the same thing.
Yeah.
I think for me too, to answer your question, I'm optimistic, but for whatever reason, just things aren't clicking. Like I'm having some sort of blockages that I don't exactly know what's going on. And it's not like this is my first option. Like, oh, all right, it's time. Like I meditate every day. I do yoga. I have great relationships. I make sure I'm getting out and going for walks and feeding my mind with books and listening to other people. But man, for whatever reason, just things aren't clicking for me. And it's just starting to seem like it's time to just dive in and see what's really going on underneath the hood.
Yeah. What do you find that is like your biggest hurdle? Like what's the catch? What's the kicker? What's the one thing that you believe is holding you back? Because what people don't know is we're actually going to be doing a follow-up episode to this after Jackson goes on that journey. And we're going to see, after giving him some time to, think about what just happened and what he went through, we're going to see what he's come up with. So I think that that's going to be a really interesting process here. So what would you say is the kicker?
Yeah, so it's not a matter of consistency. I keep going up and up and up, and then there will be a quick downslide. Like one mistake, snowball. And I think what I really want to get better at is understanding my patterns when I'm starting to snowball, kind of identifying those signals and maybe brainstorm some ideas for reversing that pattern, because I think that could change everything. I mean, there's always going to be mistakes. It's just all about how we handle those mistakes. So I
Yeah.
really just, my intention is to kind of come up with some better ideas and kind of see what they have to say.
So it sounds like you're almost resetting to your comfort level, right? We all have like a thermometer or that keeps us at a level of comfort, and good or bad, if we go too far above it, our ego or identity will pull us back. Or if we go too far below it, right? It's almost like, why does our income stay at a certain level? We never get, especially when we're struggling on financial success, you get a little bit above it and then you go back, then you go down and you go up, right? And you always have this equilibrium that you can't escape. And just one thought to that is, who do you see yourself as? So if you're getting to a level and then you have rapid decline, there's something deep in your own identity that you haven't, in my opinion or my experience and challenges of growth as well. It's who am I supposed to really be? Right? It's who you are is not who you want to be, but who you are is who you believe yourself to be. And
Yeah.
so there's an element of belief of this other version of Jackson that, and this is something actually has come through in some of the copy of the website and things that we've done, is it's not out there, right? It's like we think in X amount of time, I'm going to be the person I want to be. And it's almost like we set ourselves with an oasis that if I can just get across this desert 5 more miles, or
Yeah.
5 more years or 2 more weeks. And we believe that the person is always out there, but that's almost like saying, well, when tomorrow gets here, I'll do that. And that never happens. It's only now. And it's the fact that we have to shift our perception of understanding you already are that person. There is nowhere else to go. There is no journey that needs to be made. It's the illusion of the journey that compromises our ability to move forward.
Yep.
So when you go in, Jackson, the place to find is that you are already the person. You are already the version of the trader you want to become. And you almost have to see you there as, and I think, Pat, you said it in your yearly, your video that you did a few days ago. I already knew it was just a matter of time. And
Yeah.
when you understand it's just a matter of time, ignore time.
Yeah.
By focusing on time, you become a prisoner of time, right? Yeah. So forget time and just be who you are, and forget about all of the other things that you want to be, and just focus on becoming that person. And I think the mushrooms will help you tap into that, because it's an inward journey, not an outward journey. And that's the shift that I think Jen and I have both made. It's like, no, man, I've had it all wrong. I'm always pushing, going. And then you're locked into the laws of the 3D world, which means you have to do prison time.
Yeah.
But mushrooms are about getting to the spiritual world, which means you have no boundaries, no limits. Your potential is infinite because you're not bound by time.
And it's bringing that world into this world, because that's what it's about.
Right.
And, talking about when I made the decision, it doesn't sound like much. And I'm glad you picked up on that, Adam. Like when I just said, I knew I was going to get there. It's just, I know I'm already there.
You're already there. There's no journey.
It's just a matter of time until things start going. It's just a matter of time. I'm already there. That was a conversation that I had with myself. And a lot of those conversations stemmed from doing these trips. It's something I never really talked about back then, because nobody really did this shit. You had your occasional friend that would throw you a bag of mushrooms from time to time, and that was it. Like going back before this became popularized, and like even to the point of like mainstream, to where we can have podcasts and have open discussions about it. It never really used to be that way. It was all very underground, which again puts this like negative little asterisk beside it, and it makes it dirty, which this nowadays, now that it isn't and it's more accepted, that helps too. and more people are going to start accepting it. But yes, it's just a matter of time, Jackson, and everyone that's listening, you're already there. There's a certain level of self-sabotage that we get to, and that's one of these loops that we get into. We start seeing success, and boom, we start doing shit that we shouldn't be doing, and it kicks us down a peg. And you have to just, I can say you got to get over it, right? A million times, but it's up to you to do that. And that's another thing that I brought up in that yearly review is I used to think everybody could be helped. Nobody helped me. I had to do it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yes, you can never discount coaching and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. Some people, when I make statements like that, they're like, okay, then I gotta leave the service and I gotta stand on my own 2 feet. No, you fucking knucklehead. That's not what I'm saying. Don't do that. If you have someone that can actually legitimately show you the ins and outs, don't get rid of that. It's not what I'm saying. But you have to start making these adjustments, and you have to start getting over these hurdles yourself. I can't do that for you. And if you need a constant kick in the ass to get you motivated, motivation is good, but it's never going to last. It's not going to last. And I can't continue to keep motivating you personally, whoever that is. You can use that for drive from time to time, but you should never need it. You need to be self-starting. You need to be self-motivated. You need to get your own ass off the couch, so to speak, right? You know, for those of you that have never seen those yearly reflection videos that I do, I usually just do it once a year, walk down the beach, have some thoughts, and it's usually a lot of motivation, like to light a fire under people's ass. And this year I didn't do that because the more and more I'm growing, I'm realizing, well, fuck, man, nobody had to do that for me, right? I didn't need that motivation because I'm self-motivated. I was sick of how I was living and where my life was heading. I was sick of it. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I did something about it. And it's realizing once you make that first step, when you have that first conversation with yourself, it's done. You're already there. It's just a matter of time. So it's like, that's what people need to realize. You're there. If you're watching this, something like this, you're there. And the reason why I say that isn't because this podcast is so fucking great. I'm not saying that. It's because you're looking, you're searching, you're doing whatever it takes. You're finding unconventional methods. Who else has a fucking day trading podcast about fucking taking psychedelics? It doesn't exist. It's crazy to blend those two worlds, but they're so fucking perfect together. And if you are watching something like this, you're there. You just have to realize that. You have to believe it. We can say things all the time like, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I'm going to get there. I'm going to be successful. But you need to dig deeper into your soul. Does your soul believe it? Because you can't lie to your soul, right? And that's what a lot of people do. They fucking lie to themselves. They don't believe it wholeheartedly. They'll say that, they'll use those words, but their actions are speaking different because they don't actually believe it. You think you're not worthy enough to do this. You don't think you should be this. You don't think you're allowed to be that. It's like I dealt with that shit my entire life, completely, lower middle class, if you could even call it that. And, grew up poor, didn't have money. I mean, we paid bills, had food and shit, had clothes, but like that was it. Didn't have extra money. So I'm destined for that. I grew up telling myself that. And it was one thing my mom said to me when I was 8 years old, and we took a vacation. And I know what you're thinking. Well, what do you mean if you're broke? How did you take a vacation? That's a long story. That's for another time. But we went to Disneyland. So we went to LA, and we were doing a tour of LA on one of those fucking tour buses. And we're down, and I've told Adam this, and I've told other people this story too. We were down Rodeo Drive, and me and my brother are just in awe of all this. Like, it's crazy luxury down there, right? Especially coming from where we come from. And my mom says to me and my brother, this place isn't for us. Like, basically, you'll never be here, right? You know what I mean? Like,
What a horrible thing to say.
it is.
Do
And
stuff
it's
like
one
that.
of those things that, like, people say that they don't realize how fucking damaging that is.
Mhm.
So I went through my entire life thinking, I'm never going to be there. But I use that for fucking fire and motivation, man. Fuck that shit. It's like, now when I go to LA, I stay at the Beverly Wilshire. We stay there in the largest suite that they have. Not that that matters. I'm just making a point. We have friends that own shops down there. One of the biggest jewelers on the fucking planet. We go into his shop. We hang out. We go for breakfast and have coffee with these guys every single fucking day that we're there. We own that fucking place. So it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, mom? You know, like, don't limit people like that. It's crazy. And it's like, it's those little fucking things that people will put in your head as a kid. You got to get over it, because so many people will just continue to go through life. They'll go through their entire fucking lives and they'll think, I don't deserve this. Why? Because what? Your fucking mom told you that? Because her life didn't turn out the way she wanted, right? And then she projected her bullshit onto you. Like I've said 1,000 times, everybody has mommy and daddy fucking issues, right? Everybody, because of that sort of shit. But it's up to you to prove them wrong. Instead of like using that stuff to like, you know, it's like some sort of like an excuse or like a poor me type of excuse. It's like, oh, I'm never going to get to that. I can't afford that. Fuck the rich. It's like, why fuck the rich? Right? Be the rich. Why not? Right? Like, rich means a lot of different things for a lot of different people, man. Right? So it's like, someone else put that limitation on you. When are you going to realize that? You didn't put that limitation on yourself. There are no fucking limits. When you realize that the actual cheat code to success is like just fucking getting up and like doing it, like literally just do it. Get off the fucking couch, not tomorrow, like right now, and go do it. You'll realize, oh, you fit in. You're supposed to be there. We're all supposed to be there. It's you that's doing it yourself, to yourself. That's what's going on here. Right. So I know that kind of like went down a whole different angle, but like, fuck, man, that shit drives me nuts because everybody does that to themselves. They think that it's like, you're not supposed to be allowed to do that. Right. And that's what Jackson's doing. That's what he's doing. He's doing that to himself. He, instead of his mom, is telling himself he doesn't belong. He might not say that out loud, but that's the shit that's going on deep, deep in the mind, in the subconscious. That's what's going on. That's what holds people back. And you gotta take a fucking axe to that motherfucker talking to you in your head, and you gotta chop his fucking head off straight up. Like, kill that motherfucker. Like, that guy should not have any right to be inside your head. And that's how you break through, right? So it's like, that's how I put it. I'm sure there's a lot fluffier ways to put it, but that's what you got to do. You got to kill that guy because he doesn't belong.
Yeah.
That's the one that doesn't belong, right? Like, and that's how it is.
What do you think, Jackson?
So it seems like your mom told you that when you were extremely impressionable when you were a kid. And I think what these experiences do, they kind of put us back in that impressionable state where we can kind of remold ourselves into something else. In fact, I don't know if you remember this. This was probably 5 years ago, a mentoring class, when you asked us, what do you think our deepest fears are? And I don't know if you remember, but I told you that I thought my deepest fears was I could try as hard as I can and it still won't be good enough. And that's going back to what you said about just believing that we're not good enough. And it ended up just being a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean,
yes,
I've made progress in other areas, but overall, like, I feel like I'm doing all these things, but it still hasn't been enough. And it's getting to the point where it's time to just look back and see maybe what is going on deep, 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 and maybe having that conversation with myself with a little help. So.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. And Pat, you know, when, you know, it's there's this thing where, and I kind of feel like Jackson is like, for the last 25 years of my life, I've been showing up with my game face on. I haven't been someone who's who's sitting on a couch. Pat, you know a little bit about my backstory,
Yeah.
and I've showed up. I know there's things I didn't do that I should have done that could have moved my company forward. I know that in my heart. So I can say on the surface, yeah, COVID overnight wiped out half our company and put us on a downward spiral that brought us into trading, which that was the best thing ever for us. I'm so grateful for it, because I didn't really, it was time to move on, and I didn't know how. But it's like, even then, at that point that happened, it should have been a publicly traded company. It was that good. But I honestly, in my heart, I didn't really want to be a CEO. I didn't want to be out there in Silicon Valley. I didn't want to play that game of money. I found it very repulsive. I didn't want to have to go to other people and have them invest in my company and surrender my freedom to whatever it is they felt that company should be. So if I truly wanted that company to be publicly traded, I would have probably moved to San Francisco. I don't want to do that. So there's a lot of things I just didn't want to do that were in direct contradiction to the company that I was the founder of. And so I was doomed from the beginning, because I didn't want to play a game that had to be played if I was going to win at it. But in my head, it's like, I was always telling myself, I'm doing everything I can be doing. I work, but I associated everything with work. So I would pull 24-hour shifts, just to move this company forward by myself and on my own. And I'm just kind of relating to you when you're saying, man, and I hear you. And it's like, with trading, this last several years of our life, it's studying and meditation and psychedelics and watching Pat's videos and hang on every word. It's like, I should be a multimillionaire by now at this game. Why am I not? And it's always this thing of thinking to myself, because I'm not where I should be, I'm not enough, just like what you're saying. And it's like, so Pat, this is all coming around to, what do you say to the people like Jackson and I and Jen, who are truly putting everything in to this game, and we're not enjoying the benefit of what we think we should at the time? I know the answer now, and I'm very content with it. But for someone in position of Jackson, who the people believe they're putting everything into it, what do you say to that? I mean, we know there's more levels, but and that's why I think Jackson's here, because we're blinded by something, are we not?
So, usually when I answer questions like this, there's two ways that I can go. I can give people the answer that they want to hear, or I can give them the real answer. It's like,
how about both? Give us both.
Yeah, I will give you both.
Okay.
So what I could say to you, which isn't the real answer, is just keep putting in the work. You gotta trust the process. And it's true. What I'm saying right now is not a lie. It's not like I'm blowing smoke up someone's ass. You gotta trust the process. You have to keep pushing forward. You're there. You just gotta keep going, right? Along those lines. That's what I would say. But the real answer is, I can't answer that. That's for you to fucking answer. You need to answer that. You need to get to the bottom of what the problem is, because I don't know you personally. I don't know the shit that you've went through in your life. I don't know, right? Like, I can lie to you. I can tell you things you want to hear. But the fact of the matter is, you need to do it yourself. You have to keep going. You have to trust that it's happening right now. It's unfolding in front of your eyes, second by second. It's already happening. That's the thing. It is happening. You're just trying to put it this much, and I don't have enough screen space, so I'll do this much time into that. That's what you're trying to do. It's happening. You are just impatient, right? And it's like, are you going to listen to me? I don't know, right? But that's truth, right? Like,
there's
that's
one word that I came out of a journey that spoke to me on this. Should I share it, or should I wait for it?
No, go ahead. Yeah,
go ahead. And it sums up what's going on. It's the word of acceptance. Yeah. It is, when I heard this word and I started doing research, our reality is based on, and this is another very profound, I was told vibration is everything. I'm like, what? And it's like, then all this came, money is money is vibration, and all these other words that all these things like that can't be vibration. But it's like if you actually study the physics of our world at a quantum level, everything is vibration. Mm-hmm. And then the word acceptance is actually a higher vibrational level, which came to me. I mean, it blew my doors off because it shattered. It's like it's just one of those expansion things. It's like vibration is everything. What? That's nonsense. But then the word acceptance, and that is probably one of the most powerful, boring words you've ever heard.
Yeah.
So do some research on acceptance and find out where that is on the vibrational level between gratitude and love. It's a gateway word because without acceptance, we're trapped at the lower levels of vibration. Desire is a very damaging level of vibration. It means you're telling yourself, I'm without. And so it's lack. And so we get trapped in this desire of success. And then this repetition of, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to get there. You know, so those are it's a very powerful word that keeps us down, but acceptance is the gateway to everything else that we're after. So maybe in your journey, Jackson, it's finding the path to acceptance, because then nothing matters.
No,
and you're always where you're supposed to be, and you stop fighting.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's
Go ahead,
a lot of stuff coming up from all we've talked about in the past 10 minutes or so. I mean, should we get into like the job and stuff? Like
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, Jackson, we're like we mentioned before, and not to like blow over what Adam said, let's just touch on that first, because what he just said is so fucking true. And once you accept it, you're there. And it's one of those words, you can't fake it either. You can't just tell yourself, okay, I accept it. You can't just surrender with a lie. It needs to be real. You need to accept that it will happen. Time is ticking by millimeter, but you're still marching forward. There's a lot of cliche, and some of the stuff that Adam just said, it can come off flaky. It isn't. That's a fucking path to success. Right there. That's the keys. And that's something to definitely focus on when you are, if somebody out there is watching this that wants to get over hurdles, focus on what Adam just fucking said. Do that. And like, you're going to have one of those trips, one of those journeys that it will be life-changing. It's a fucking given. If you're open to it, man. Yeah. If you're constantly just giving into shit, giving into those desires, like Adam said, like that's low. That's 100% that is, right? You're just
thinking about having a nice car. I stopped all that. Oh, I would love to have that. Anything that has to do with desire that's projecting my energy out into the world, I stopped doing, because I realized I'm creating desire, and that's basically a sin. You know, do not live like that. Whatever you do, if you don't have something, create a plan that is going to put you on the path to obtaining it, and just know that it's there. But don't give in to the temptations of desire, because they put you out of your control.
100%. We've all seen it. We've all heard the term new money, right? Where people generally grow up without money and they finally get it, and you see them lose their fucking minds. And it's like, they look ridiculous. They they're broke. They've blown through all of their money. How many lottery winners have won the lottery and went broke in the first year? It's the same shit, because they've never worked on themselves. They don't realize, like, my happiest possession that I own is my farm. I love it out there. I got animals out there. I'm the happiest in the world when I'm scraping out those stalls. I love it, because those stalls, when I scrape them in a pile, and that's what gives me my mushrooms. So it doesn't get any better than that. So it's like, work towards just a better life, and things will happen. When you're just constantly chasing, it's like, do I own nice things? Yeah, fuck, I do own nice things. But it's not something I focus on. And to me, they're just cars, right? Like, It just gets me around people in this fucking country where they don't know how to drive. It drives me absolutely fucking crazy. So I'm able to whip around them real fast. So I'm using those as a tool. So that's how that is. But definitely something to focus on.
Jen, is there anything you want to add real quick on that before we move on?
Oh, I mean, as far as that's concerned, there's other, and I know it does come across like kind of woo woo hippie stuff, like,
Yeah.
oh, frequencies and, but it's legit. If you actually, there's a chart that'll show what the higher frequencies are. You've got joy, love. I can't. Gratitude is another big one, and acceptance is right at that door. And then below that, you've got desire, which we've already spoke extensively on. Anger. There's a lot of
Shame.
anxiety, shame.
Guilt.
Shame is another terrible one. Guilt. Just and if you think about people that carry a lot of burdens or that struggle with some of the stuff that we've talked about, you can look at that person and say, this is a low vibrational. Go to the grocery store, you can literally see it on them that they are stuck in a lower vibration. And people that think that's hippie stuff or whatever, look around you. You can easily see that if you start paying attention, and you may be one of them. So you need to get out of that. But acceptance is the door to that. And that's something that I really had to work on personally. Like I said, I would go off the deep end if I took a red trade. I mean, that'd be like $20 and I'd be like, you're such a loser, or whatever. And
shame, you would be shame. You
I
feel
would
shame.
be shame. I'm not studying. I'm losing our money because we're pretty tight financially. So it was like any loss would be like, oh my God, I just lost $20. But it wasn't until I really worked on, and that's what I think is neat about these journeys. Like, I learned something from Men's journey. I learned a lot from Adam's journey. I know he's learned stuff from mine.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson, can't wait to see what comes up for you.
We learn from you,
because you go into this place, but it all is, it really is interesting how the same kind of subjects come up. Because I had a similar experience to where it was like, we're all humans. I don't want to get off on some tangent, but basically that once I accepted that I'm going to take a red trade, and if I do not let it destroy me, no matter how big the loss is, and just move on, then I accept it and it's in the past. And I mean, like, that I did the truth behind the trade with you. That was almost a $400 loss. And Adam was just like, oh, Jen, it's okay. Cause I think he was waiting for me to lose
spiral.
Yeah. And I was just like, nope, it's fine. Move on down the road. And I really didn't let it get to me. So, but that was after, I had really worked on that. So it does really, what Adam is saying is honestly legit. So.
And it's not just acceptance of like laying over and letting things happen. You went and actually tried to get feedback on that. And then you were accepting of that feedback as well. I think that's a really important distinction.
Yeah, it is the gateway, right? Is just accepting. It's one of those things that I've said a million times too. It's like when you take those losses, review them. But then when your head hits that pillow at night, that's it. It's over. It's done. Like you got to move on, right? Mm-hmm. And it does. It starts with acceptance, and it's easier said than done. And that's the thing that I was talking about before. It's like I can say this shit a million times, but it's a matter of someone coming to those conclusions on their own. Mm-hmm. Through the use of these definitely help, to kind of like move on with Jackson. Like I was talking about at the beginning of this, Jackson worked for Trick Trades. And he did a wonderful job at the beginning, and then started noticing some habits that were happening and starting to form. And I know that they were self-destructive. That's what was going on. At the core of it, that's what I believe was going on. It was self-destruction because things were going well. He had a good job, and he worked so hard to get that job too. Like I said, he did the Trick Trades archives for years for free. He just did it. Right. And then we brought him on the payroll, And that lasted about a year and a half. Again, I'm horrible with time, and had to let him go. So Jackson was hired on, as you can tell, the type of person that he is. He's very soft spoken. You can look at him and just know he's patient with people. He's nurturing. He's caring. That's why he was brought on, because I'm not. I understand this about myself. I don't have a lot of patience with people. It's something that I try to work on as much as I can. But at the end of the day, you can change, but how much can you change? I'm never going to turn in to be like Jackson on that level of like nurturing, understanding, caring. I'm not built that way, right? And that's part of what makes me me. So I'm okay with that. So Jackson was brought on because of those attributes. Now, towards the end, and ultimately one of the reasons why he was let go was because he became the complete opposite. So he was starting to like get real short with members that were asking questions. Now I get short with members that are asking those questions, right? Because I don't have a lot of time to be answering very basic questions when we've put a lot of time and effort and energy into our educational system. So it's already there. It's there, right? So that's what people need to understand. It's there. The answers are right there, right? They're all bullet pointed. They're right there for you, right? But sometimes we know how people are. They get excited, they get ahead of themselves, and they just want to ask the question. I don't have patience for that. So I put a safety measure in place. Jackson was my safety measure. Then he became a liability on that. So that's why ultimately one of the reasons why he was let go. And it's not something that was taken lightly. It wasn't easy to do because I've got nothing but love for Jackson. He's a great guy, such a great guy. It's one of those things that it just is what it is. And was also hoping that maybe that would almost serve as a lesson. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those like tough life lessons where it's like, that's ultimately why I didn't let him go. It's like, I'm going to teach him a lesson. It wasn't about that. That was just, a side effect of that. Right. And there can be good side effects and bad side effects. And I was hoping it would snap him out of that. So that's kind of the background to that. So what's your take on that, Jackson? What was happening at that time? Because I know something had to have been going on. Now, you don't need to go into specifics if it's something super personal and everything else, but something had to have been happening. And I also want to let people know that, we had multiple conversations before it ultimately came down to that, trying to fix the problem, but then the problem never became fixed, right? So.
Yeah, what Adam was just saying, it really helped me contextualize things too. Maybe I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted, and I started feeling really frustrated. And again, back to just like, do I deserve a job like this? Like, I don't know. It's obviously something I've thought a lot about. And then also just, I don't know, with the invitation to come down to Costa Rica, I mean, sometimes when you talk on screen share and you talk about how people like literally have a lottery ticket by being in the room. Well, I take that part because, I mean, arguably I've had the golden ticket before, and for whatever fear or just maybe not trusting or just giving away, I don't want to say giving away control because like it's not like I would have been a slave or something, but
No.
I don't know. It was hard to accept that help and how it was the opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, to own a Silicon Valley company, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. And for me, like this was my dream job. Like when I had nothing, like this was like my rope to like lean on, like pull on. Like well, if I just like keep working, like maybe he'll give me a chance. And like you did again and again and again. And yeah, I think it was just not being able to accept and what the role actually entailed. Like, yeah, it's easy to say like, oh yeah, like I work online, like it's amazing. But when it comes to answering the same questions and having to answer an email, like maybe like when I'm with my family, just kind of like out and about, and like I check my phone and see I have to like answer something. I think that was really just weighing on me, and I was having a hard time. And I think where it really went wrong was I was brooding about it. I wasn't using my words. I was just like shutting down and self-sabotaging, and like that's how it's like a messed up way of fixing things, but like it ultimately got me out of the problem, but not in an ideal way.
Yeah.
Whereas I believe if I would have like had the courage to like talk to you, like, hey, like I'm like having some boundary issues, I'm feeling really stressed, like maybe like if I could have a day off or something. I don't know what the solution was, but if I just would have had those words and just trusted that we would have been able to like figure something out, and I couldn't get myself to bring it up. I was just like scared, or I don't know what it was,
Yeah,
but
I think there definitely would have been a solution to that. To put things into context, because people don't know exactly what Jackson was doing. So he was answering questions that would be asked. But then from my perspective, because I'm not going to hold my tongue,
yeah.
I look at that and it's just like, but you're making it out to be like it was a job that was like you were literally at the computer or on your phone all day long. And it's like the reality of it isn't that way, right? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's a
and
perception.
I could be wrong, right? Because I know people were hitting you up, but it's also a choice too. It's like there's some things where you can look at it and it's like, okay, that can definitely wait 30 minutes until I'm home. Or so I think it would be a matter of, is it just even a right fit, right? Like that's where people need to be honest with themselves. Like some types of situations or work, it's just not going to be for you, period. It's a question that we need to come up with the answer on our own as well, right? It's just about, again, everything just boils down to like honesty, like being honest with yourself. And it's like, I understand, because I'm sure it came into your mind too. You don't want to let me down, right? You've been given this opportunity, right? You don't want to let me down. So you just stuffed it deep down inside. And it's like, okay, I'll fucking deal with it. And then it just comes out and it manifests in a really negative manner, right? And that's kind of what happened. It could have been maybe solved. Maybe the solution was to ultimately just let you go anyways. Like, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, well, maybe it just isn't a right fit. You know what I mean? And it's because I think like at the end of the day, like just like working through that whole problem and what the job was, it wasn't that bad. Like I've had some pretty fucking shitty jobs in my day. And it's like to me, but maybe to you it was. Maybe to you it's just not a right fit. Always being chained to that phone or that computer screen or laptop or whatever to where you need to answer that sort of stuff. Some people just aren't built to do that type of stuff. Like with me and what this job takes, I'm chained. I'm chained to the hip. But I've also managed a way where I can be up at my farm. I can be on vacation. I can be at my home. I can be literally laying in the fucking pool. I can do that and still answer a couple of questions here and there, or, give someone a refund or whatever shit I need to take care of on the back end. So it could boil down to management, but ultimately I think it just boils down to, it's like sometimes things aren't just a right fit. Or you know what I mean? Like there's never been any hard feelings toward Jackson at all. And usually when I let someone go, I wish them nothing but pain. And I know how that comes off, but I'm just being honest with you. I never want to see people fail, but if somebody fucks me, I want to see them fail. I want to see them burn. But that's just me, and I'm just being honest. Jackson, I do not wish him anything bad. I wish him nothing but success in life. He's a good guy. He's a good kid, right? Like he did nothing wrong. It's just I think something came out where it manifested in the wrong way. Instead of dealing with it, like just dealing with the issue, and there's a lesson to be learned there too. It's like just deal with the issue, because how many times did we talk before you were ultimately run off? Probably 4 or 5 times of like serious conversations.
Yeah,
And that's just off the top of my head, like lots, right? So there were opportunities there, right? So it's like, if something's on your mind, and that's a big thing too, when it comes to success, just like on a little bit of a side note, the people that are really have found success in life, they don't pull any punches, man. It's like if something's on their mind, it might stew for a little bit, and they think of a way to say it so it doesn't come off super aggressive, because it can always come off like really aggressive. So it's like they think about it and then they respond, because it needs to be handled. Because I used to, like I've said before in this podcast, I used to be a massive procrastinator. I'd put things off and put things off and put things off. And it didn't manifest in good fucking ways. Always came out bad, right? Until I would just blow up. It's like, okay, now I've reached my breaking point. So when you don't deal with issues, it's like that's what can happen. And that's pretty much what happened, minus a blow up. It just manifested in a really negative way towards members. And I'll always protect my members. My members will always come first. They always have, they always will. I've let tons of people go because of either interaction or they were frauds. There's lots of them out there. And once I realized that they're frauds, they're cut, they're gone. Like, I would never do that to a member. I know what their money is, you know, how hard they work for their money. So, and I know I'm going off on a complete side note, but you know, that's just kind of how I roll. And it's one of those things that's like, it's constantly, well, I shouldn't say constantly. I don't want to exaggerate it, but it is something that pops in my mind from time to time about Jackson. And it's like, it's a shame, because it's like, he's, like I've said a million times in this, he's a good guy. He's a good kid, right? That's why I wanted to have him actually come down here to Costa Rica. And we had multiple business ideas, right? And we were going to go with that and just basically throw him a business to run and split profits and rock and roll, right? But again, it was one of those things. It's like he said yes, but he didn't really mean yes, right? He didn't want to do it. And that's all you have to say. Again, if it's not a right fit, it's not a right fit. What do you say about that?
Yeah, it really just boils down to communication, and it goes both ways. Like, I talk about how I really feel, we compromise. And Adam and Jen, I'm sure you guys, and being in a relationship, it's not going to go very well if you're stuffing things in. So yeah, I don't know if it was like a maturity thing, or like you've brought up, like just not wanting to let you down. So maybe biting off more than I can chew. And that's one of my intentions I'm really trying to go in with as well, is like, what is this desire, like you're saying, to please people so much that I'm willing to maybe not overextend is probably the wrong word, but do things that I'm not necessarily aligned with. And yeah, and also just the way I communicate with myself. I mean, all of us have brought up examples today of how we talk to ourselves. And like, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. And I understand like that I wasn't thinking that way, and that's an issue. Like, the issue wasn't the thing itself, it's the way I was looking at it. So yeah, I guess that's really just something I'm trying to improve on, and that's just what I'm rolling with.
Well, I think that that's going to help, because, like, again, the first step is acceptance, and you've kind of accepted that there's an issue. I need to cut it off of the past. Like, I need to understand what is actually going on. I need to fix this by any means necessary, right? So it's like, because these types of journeys aren't to be taken lightly. They are extreme measures. Like, I always consider any type of macro dose of any psychedelic, that is, in case of emergency, break glass. That's how I use them. Now, not everybody will use them that way, but that's kind of how I look at it. And that's, I believe, their intended use for the majority of people, unless you're a shaman, right? Where you need to spend most of your time in that space. I get it. But for us to use this as in case of emergency, break glass type of event, you have an emergency and you got to get to the bottom of it. And that's where this stuff can really help. Is that how you and Jen use that as well? Kind of like in case of emergency, break glass?
One thing I wanted to say real quick before I answer that, one thing I noticed, Jackson, is you were saying that you were doing all those archives for years for free. And then it was like when you got brought on board with trick trades, it kind of almost seems like, because what I've found with your ego, it'll pick a way to sabotage you, and you're not even really aware of it. like it could be, so the fact that you got fixated on the, oh man, this sucks, I'm out with my family and I got a text or whatever, that was your ego's excuse to kick you out of that role, and not to, because you deep down didn't think you deserved it. So I find it, kind of funny that you were okay doing all this work for free,
That's interesting.
and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm getting paid, this is like my dream job. Oh crap, I don't deserve this. Oh, look at how I'm bothered by all these emails, and that was your ego's excuse to keep you safe and get you back out of that role. So just as somebody that has struggled with self-sabotage a lot myself, and I've actually made a lot of progress, just kind of or that's kind of an outside observer, that's what I've kind of noticed. I'm like, so you may just want to do
That
a
is
little
interesting.
bit more examining there.
Why you were able to do that for free for so long.
And never missed a day doing it either. Like every day.
Yeah.
Like he wanted.
Like all over the world. Like I've done it like truck stops and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you were hungry, and then when you got what you wanted, you weren't content.
Yeah.
And so you took yourself out of that. You almost became bored.
Yeah, I think there's something more going on there too. Like there's something deeper there. Like for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. Like that's what's kind of leading me into this. Like, what is it? Because I mean, I was living the dream. Like I got to spend, honestly. So now that I'm working like a normal job, I get to spend less time with my family. So it doesn't even make sense.
No.
So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
and like
real
it's all
quick,
just like a learning experience, but yeah, and it's just I don't know exactly what that is, and I don't know. I'm open to answers. So
how we've used it once we discovered the power, to me, there it just depends on, I don't want to say how messed up you are, but how much there's work that has to be done. And that level of work for people could be, you take them once and you're good.
Yeah.
And then, or you've got a lot of layers of the onion to unpack. So for us, our initial use frequency of use was upwards of probably 3 to 4 weeks of doing different sessions of different levels. And one, because you're trying to understand and learn from the experience itself of what is this tool, right? You're just trying to figure out how to use the hammer. And then once you become adept at the hammer, using the hammer, then what then you can start building something. So it wasn't just a process of, oh, I experiment with this, I'm good for a year. It's like, okay, I'm figuring out what this tool is. Now I've got to apply it. How do I apply the tool? What am I crafting in my life? So there was probably for a year where we were doing it I did it more because I felt like I needed a lot more work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Jen she's been a lot less. So
the frequency, you also have more pressure on you as a man to be a provider. So that's why Adam was like, I got to figure this crap out, Yeah. So I'm in a little different of a position because I know that it's a lot of pressure for a guy in a relationship to feel like they're the provider. I've got to figure out our finances out. And so I think that's why he kind of hit it a little harder. That's kind of a bad term, just he was more aggressive with the journeys and stuff, just to try to kind of crack that nut. But
everyone is their own machine that they're trying to figure out how it works. We don't have instruction manuals. So what I needed versus what Jackson might need, or what you need, Pat, and even what we talked about in last episode, how you even administer it, and what Jen needed are all it's your own book of life that you're working on reading and understanding. And I'll just, Terrence McKenna, what I love the quote, he said, once you get the message, hang up the phone.
Yeah.
And so that's what I always tried to do. And then once the message was used, I give myself time and I listen to this voice that we all have inside our head that guides us. It's like, okay, is it time for me to go back in? Because it's like going down into a coal mine, and you're going to be down there and it's a lot of work. It's not fun, right? There's a there's a lot of things that go along with this as far as scheduling and time and energy, commitment. It's not something to be taken lightly, and you just have to weigh that against the pressure and the progress that you're making in your life and really listen to it. You don't want to do it too much because then you're abusing it, and then that's becoming a habit of escapism, and you're not addressing the problems that you should have listened to the previous time. So there's just a very critical balance to get that right and not overuse it, but then not underuse it if it's going to help you.
So when do you plan on taking these, Jackson?
So I'm getting together with a friend today. I'm not sure if he's ready, or if not today, then probably in the next couple of weeks. I know I have like a weird, like, I feel like spring is a good time to do them. You know,
Yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that.
Like a period of.
So how are you planning to just take it with your friend and chill out, or is that what your intended experience is?
So after listening to the set and setting episode, it's seeming like, and talking with Pat, it seems like the way for me to go, since it's some very specific blockages I'm trying to work through, it's probably just be in a safe place, have someone that I trust, and kind of see what comes up from there. And not kind of.
So you'll be doing it by yourself, right? Are you going to use the mask and put on music and headphones and just go into a deep meditation?
We've always had really good, because oh wait, yeah, I was talking to you about this. So this is someone that we've had experiences together for about 8 years now. So we have a really good flow where we're both going to probably be on about an equal amount, and we're just going to talk things out.
Yeah.
And he just has a great way. He's a great listener. He understands me better than most people, and he's also not afraid to tell me how it is. So not like a therapy session, but just kind of like a brainstorming. And
I don't think that's a bad idea. Yeah, I mean, and if you ever needed to go deeper, if you found you didn't quite get what you were after, I would use the sensory deprivation method that Adam uses. That's
a mask and some headphones and stuff. I'll probably bring him as a backup. He's also like, if I was like, hey, so like I'm starting to like feel like this is the way to go, they'd be like, do your thing. So like try to like please him, I guess.
And what exactly are you looking to get out of him? I know that I've asked this at the beginning, but maybe talking a little bit through this podcast, maybe something's changed a little bit. Like what is your set intention going into this?
To figure out what the issue is, not spend too much time dwelling on that, and then start accepting the solutions. Because me thinking about it isn't getting me anywhere anymore. I mean, I've tried everything. So maybe just getting a different perspective, even if it is my own in like an altered state. But it's just getting to the point where, I mean, I've let other people into my life now. I mean, and it was different where me constantly making the same mistakes, it was only affecting me, but it's not anymore. And it's the point where this is bigger than me. I want to be there for the people, and I have all the opportunity I need to, but that thing that I don't know is holding me back. So what Jen was saying before really brought that up for me as well, hearing it from your perspective, like that I'm in that role now. Like it's not all up to me, but I need to be pulling my weight, and I feel like I'm not, and I have the methods of doing so, but my mindset's not there.
How much are you planning on? Because I'm just interested. When I go on a journey, I like completely check out. I could not have any kind of conversation with anybody. Like Adam has tried to check on me. I'm like, I can't talk. I'm like in a different world, so how much are you planning on doing? Are you going to do like a gram or?
Yeah, I'm planning on like.
I'm just curious because I maybe I'm different, but I can't I can't imagine having a conversation with somebody. For me, I'm like, I'm gone, so I'm just wondering how much power are you kind of going to give it?
Yeah, I think it's because we've already had that type of relationship before, but maybe like 0.7 to 1. This is,
Okay.
I don't recommend this, but when we first started, we would take an eighth each. I mean, it brought us out, but I'm not looking for something that intense. I don't think I need something that intense. Like, I'm a lightweight, so my brain just knows like exactly what to do when I take this kind of stuff. And just with like some of the myco stuff I was taking before, it just seems like that 0.7, the 1 gram range it feels like that's about what I need. Like, it's going to be enough where I'm still like conscious, but that like veil is going to be lifted.
Yeah. Take your guards down, right? Yeah, and sometimes that's exactly what we need. That's kind of how I use it. Like as a reset, it's like I take a gram upwards of 2 grams max. It's something that I can still kind of do whatever I need to do. I find it interesting. Like your alkaloid receptors must be so sensitive, Jen. If you're completely checked out at a gram, that's that's pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I've never done anything more than a gram, but I mean, like I will, I'm describing my experience. Like I'm in, a black room and there's a baby that appears and, I have this conversation, I mean, I'm gone, it's like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I must just be, and even when I microdose, like poor Adam, when he tries to measure it, it's like, I don't even know if I can measure it this small, so I don't know.
0.018.
Yeah. 0.018.
Yeah, like and that's a good note too, and that's why you need to start small and don't be listening to those knuckleheads out there telling everyone to you need at least 5 grams, you need at least 10 grams. You don't, you might not, you might, but you might not, and you don't want to find out the hard way because it's really going to turn
No.
you off from this stuff.
Yeah,
Because someone that is on that level off of 1 gram, like Jen, if she were to take 5, that's going to be nightmarish. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be pleasant at all. And
there's no reason to do that to yourself.
No, exactly.
I've been in the place where you've taken a little bit too much and you're with someone with that intention and then realize like, oh no, this isn't what this experience is going to be this time. And then you have to like, leave, and that's just, I don't know, it's awkward for everyone.
Yeah.
So you've got a history with these, Jackson. Have you taken them in the past for recreational purposes, or has there things? I mean, you mentioned some of the things right away that you learned from, that we're just all human. And are there other insights that you've had that have helped you grow and overcome obstacles in the past?
Yeah. So I was with a cousin in Colorado. This was maybe 2021, and we took about 2 grams each of some golden teachers. And it actually like relates exactly to what we were talking about today. Just like communication. Communication is key. Like it will break down all the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also, this one might be a little bit more like abstract, but I almost have like visuals for my thought patterns. Like I was seeing almost like a ripple, and like each ripple was a different habit, and they would happen in patterns. And just seeing like, oh wait, I'm doing the same things over and over again, and having like, I'm a visual learner. Seeing that, it makes a lot more sense for me now, and trying to like run with that in my everyday life of, okay, here's a habit coming up, here's where I normally do this. It's getting around that time where I would do something like that, be a little bit more aware. And yeah, using something like that really helped me in my everyday life.
Yeah, that's a great way. You're able to almost, that sounds like you were kind of outside of time. And so you're able to see how those ripples of time are coming into your life, and you're at the mercy of the ripples. But if you get above them and disassociate, like what you said, you can see them coming and adapt your behavior like a surfer to know when to jump over the swell or dive under it instead of being affected by it.
Yeah, and there's some themes that are just like inevitable. I mean, there's the outside ring, like we're all going to die one day, but not being so anxious and like focused on that. It's that, just not worrying about the things that could go wrong, and just, I don't know, understanding that those things are going to happen. Red trades is one of them. I mean, there's going to be times where we're in a trade that doesn't work, and how are we going to react when that happens? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's accepting that is completely normal. It's like, it's one thing I talk about all the time. Like, people have this idea that every trade needs to work, but they'll tell me, if I ask them, do you understand what strategy is? And you understand that not every trade will work. There's no such thing as a 100% hit rate strategy. It doesn't exist. If somebody tells you that, they are absolutely full of shit. Right. So it's like, they'll say, oh no, of course I know, like, red trades will happen, but you don't believe it. Right. Like, there's a lot of people out there that don't believe it, because you can see how they're reacting when the red trade happens. It should be no different than driving down a road and coming to a red light. Are you going to freak out over that? There's going to be green lights where you can easily make it to your destination. And yeah, the occasional time a red light's going to come up and you're going to have to come to a stop. It's on that exact same level. Like, that's literally a perfect analogy. It's like, it should be on the same, in like, looked at in the exact same respect, because that's what it is. It's that normal of a thing, right? So, and that again is where these can really help people, because it's a lack of perspective. It's that switch that isn't getting clicked, where people aren't believing, right? So I think for you, like, going into this, I think you're going to be able to get a lot of, like, really good work done. And I know I'm looking forward to doing the follow-up episode where, after a little bit of time, give them some integration time to kind of do some work on that and think about what happened. Or maybe it'll be really quick, but we will be doing a follow-up episode with Jackson here, and finding out, what type of answers he came up with. And maybe it wasn't even something about what we talked about today. Maybe something else was given to him. So I think that could be really interesting. So
I have the tools with me. I'm going to have pen and paper. I'm glad that you guys brought that up in an episode before, because I've only done that once, like, had a journal with me. And it was like, I wrote down, I was just writing like a bunch of random stuff, but at the very end it said, like, stop focusing on the obstacle and just be grateful for the opportunity. And how much does that, like, affect everything? I mean, I don't, this might have been a fallout shelter when you were saying, understand the problem, but spend most of the time focusing on the solutions. And I'm just like realizing how lucky we are just to even be able to have these sort of challenges and problems. Like, it is a gift. I mean, they're going to teach us something and progress.
It's absolutely a gift. It's absolutely a gift. I think back on every single thing that you could consider bad that has happened in my life, everything that's bad. Even going back to what my mom said on that, people will look at that and be like, oh, that's a horrible thing to say. I'm fucking glad she said it, because I don't know if I would be here if she didn't. Because obviously I use that as fuel. And you could think about everything. You could think about, even like, for people out there, because there is somebody that I talked to just recently, that's a brand new member, that he didn't do things the right way. And he ended up spending some time in jail, in prison. And now he's come out and he's found this, and let's see where it leads. Sometimes the worst things to ever happen to you, they're going to come out positive. It's just a matter of giving it time, right? To see where that path now leads. Like, again, destiny is something that a lot of people believe in. And yes, there's always ways to change things and everything, but whatever will happen will happen. One can always make that argument correct, right? Like, no matter what decision you're going to make, it's going to lead to whatever, right? And it's kind of like a rabbit hole of a thought that you could get down. But I'm just getting at, like, no matter what happens, like, even things that are perceived as negative, they're the best things that have ever happened to me. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. And I'm so grateful for where I am. Like, even at my best, Chrissy, we were just talking about this, and she asked, did you ever imagine that it would lead to this? And it's like, the answer I want to give is yes, but not this good. It's perfect. It's my idea of perfect. And it's like, I don't like saying that too much, especially on open air, because, like, a lot of people out there, they don't like hearing that shit, right? Like, they don't, but use it as fuel. It's possible. It's completely possible for you to live that way too, to find your perfect life. People think that they're destined for doom and gloom. Oh, I'm destined to just work this job until I die, and then I'll retire, and then I'll live for a year or two, and then I'm dead anyway. So what does it fucking matter? Right? You can get in these loops in your mind, and it's like, it doesn't have to be like that. I'm telling you, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what people forget, because we get so mired in the noise of life. And with the story of your mom, and this is what I think mushrooms help us remember,
Yeah.
we have the power to choose our perspective. No matter what happens, there's never just one perspective. And it's just like moving a camera lens. You've seen, I'm sure we've all seen those media things where it's focused one way and it looks like he's stabbing someone, right? And then you focus it, you pull the camera lens out, and the person's defending someone, right?
Yeah.
And the way the way the media manipulates our perspective creates reality, and they know that, but we forget that. And the story of your mom, Pat, you chose a different perspective, and your reality reflects the perspective you chose. And that's what mushrooms help us remember. Whether you're looking at ripples of time in your life to things that happen in our childhood, we can choose perspective, whether it's a red trade or a green trade, whether it's a relationship or a job. We're choosing the reality. One of my lessons was what we observe becomes reality. I mean, I'm like, what am I putting my mind's eye on? What am I observing every minute of the day? And if we can, that's perspective. So, maybe in this, Jackson, you're going to say, wow, I just got to shift my perspective, the way I observe things to get the outcome I want.
Yeah, quantum.
And Pat, you observed reality from the place of the world that you inhabit now.
Yeah.
Back then, right? You were observing your reality as a successful trader. I don't care what happens today. I don't care what trades I have. I am observing my world as a successful trader who's made it. And you never wavered from that, ever. You never betrayed yourself or contradicted yourself. You didn't say one day I'm going to be a trader, and the next day say, take a different reality, which is I'm never going to make it. You wouldn't accept that.
No.
And that's why you got there.
Yeah. Never accepted that. Never told myself never make it. No way. No, there's times where I did debate, you're going to have those thoughts. I don't want to say that it never happened, but they were quickly dismissed. It's like,
right.
Fuck
control
that.
them.
Absolutely. It was just like, no, that shit's thrown out the window. I'm already there. It's just a matter of time. Just relax.
Yeah.
I just need to give it more time, and it'll happen. And that's what people need to tell themselves. They need to realize the power of words. I see so many people, they use negative words, and they'll say things, and I always correct them when they'll call themselves a newbie. Oh, I'm just a newbie. Fuck that. Newbie. Don't call yourself that. I hate that word. I hate when people refer to new traders as newbies. It's like, it's so dismissive. It's like, what is that? What, it's like, and people can look at that and it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a word. Words are everything, people. That's what you're putting out there. And this is why I tell people, you need to stop having just internal dialogue with yourself. You need to get it out there. Get it out there. There's a power in that. And that can be perceived as flaky too. Try it and you'll see what happens. If you announce something, if you make it real like that, and then start putting it in action, you're there. You're there. You'll make it. You're right there. And it's like I always say, it's just a matter of doing it. Get off the couch and fucking do it. Right? And you shouldn't need motivation. Just do it. That's it. That's all you need to do. And you will be there.
After hearing from you guys for the past little bit, and especially your perspectives on my situation, I think something that I have caught myself thinking in the past is I've had that knowing long term I'm gonna do this. There's no doubt in my head. I am exactly I'm doing all the things I need to do. But in the short term, I have no idea how I'm gonna figure this out. I'm so focused on those problems. But what you guys are saying, a tweak I can make instead of saying, I know I'm gonna make it long term and I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And just acting from that, I think, is going to make a big difference. But
like just leave it at that. Don't think further than that. It's just that, right? Like, and I think that's a good point to bring up, because people will add things to those statements, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said, but I don't know how to get there right now. Shh, time out, shut the fuck up. Like you're doing it. That's it. That's what you got to tell yourself. Sometimes you just got to tell yourself to shut the fuck up. And like I know what I need to do, and that's it. I know I'm going to get there. Let time go. You can't do anything to control that in between. Not really. If you're doing everything that you should be doing, then it's just a matter of time. Full stop. End of story. Like that's what it is. And that's what it boils down to, right? Don't add those extra things. You're adding extra layers, and they're generally negative, right? Don't add those negative layers, right? And it'll happen. And that's great. Okay.
All right, see you guys later.
Thanks, guys. Adios.
Take it easy.
Later.